Hey, everybody, welcome back to episode 12 of the 6 Yard Box podcast, the official podcast of the Juventus Official Fan Club Toronto, brought to you by our friends at Creative, KRE8IV, for all your web design branding needs. You can hit them up at creative.ca. So thanks again to them. As usual, my name is Joe Chiraco, and I am your host, joined as always by my co-hosts, John Groh, president of JOFC Toronto, and James Martino, our board of director. On this episode 12, we have a very special guest, a kind of first for the 6 Yard Box podcast. We are proud and happy to be joined by Ryan Toon, the president of Südkurve Toronto, the Bayern Munich official fan club of Toronto. So a big benvenuto and willkommen to our friend Ryan. Thanks so much for joining us, Ryan.
Oh, thanks for having, and it's an honor to be the first, non-Juve or Serie A fan on the podcast. So appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Ryan. And like what we usually do here at the 6 Yard Box, we like to introduce our guests right off the beginning. For yourself, we'd love to hear about how you became a football fan, a Bayern fan, and we'd love to learn more about you guys over at the Bayern Munich fan club, what you guys have been up to, what are some of the things that you do. We follow each other on social media. Like I can say, honestly, what you guys are doing is fantastic. And we'd love to share that with our members and listeners.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for that feedback. I had a very typical Canadian upbringing, where my first introduction to sports was more through, the kind of more popular Canadian avenues. But I come from a split family, and one half of that family is German. So I grew up with a very strong German influence on account of my Oma providing that. So there was always this additional interest that came from my German family and learning about football through that German family. It's interesting because growing up in Mississauga, you're going to meet a Juve fan at every corner, right? You're going to meet an AC Milan fan at every corner. Like, there was no shortage of Serie A influence in Mississauga. As a kid, you weren't bumping into too many Bayern fans, let alone other Bundesliga supporters. So coming up, it was a very individual experience for me. One that I had to learn a lot about on my own and through my own, research and trying to get whatever you could get your hands on back then. I mean, we're talking like early 90s, even late 90s. These games weren't on TV. Streaming wasn't happening yet. I share stories sometimes with other guys like me. We used to download MPEGs of the matches, God knows how many days after, and God knows how many days it took to download the MPEG just so we could see some of this action. You might catch a blurb in like the newspaper sports section or something, but yeah, there was no available resource for a fan like me to grow into it the way I would have had I been around others like myself with similar interests. So the Canadian sports, that was easy. This was a challenge, but fortunately in the 2000s, things started to change. There was Setanta, which I think became Goal TV. They started carrying the rights to the Bundesliga. So now it was like you could count on the matches being on, and being able to watch and follow the team on time was really the key, and it really exploded from there. And I mean, obviously with no shortage of success, well, in the later 2000s, the early to mid 2000s weren't some of the best years, but the later 2000s, when I started going out to the bars to try to find anyone that would show these matches, especially the midweek Champions League matches, in the past, it was very much like you're there on your own. You're competing with the Barca fans, the Man U fans, maybe even the Juve fans for the TV, and you're getting outnumbered 20-1 at best. You're fighting to get the game on. All of a sudden, later on in the 2000s, and 2010, 2011, and so on, other fans started popping up. and you start exchanging numbers and you start building friendships with these guys because these are, fans that you haven't seen most of your life. And as a result, coming off the strength of the treble win in 2013, a few of us had connected and said, hey, there's something here. Why don't we build on it? And I had seen clubs like yourself over the year, or clubs like yours, I should say, over the years. I knew these things existed, but I had never actually viewed it as a practical thing. Because it was always like, well, what are we going to do? 2-3 guys are going to come out once in a while. But we realized very early that it was kind of that if you build it, they will come. And all of a sudden with social media, with, word of mouth, with the success of the club, definitely helped at that time. You start a meeting in December 2014, and I think we had maybe 4 or 5 guys, and we just kept going and going and going. And all of a sudden it was 10 guys and 15 guys and 20 guys. And, all of a sudden you're averaging on a early morning match, 30 people. And you get that afternoon kickoff and you're getting 50 to 70. And you did a big match, like a matinee, we call it a top spiel against Dortmund, or never mind a Champions League. Like the Champions League final, the bar was packed in a pandemic. I mean, safely, but still at that time they had allowed people inside the bars, right? Between the patio and the inside of the bar, it was full. So hard work, without a doubt, commitment, without a doubt, but it pays off. And, to go back to what I was saying at the beginning, to have gone from having that very individual experience to now be in the exact opposite, to be like just surrounded. I mean, we average return membership of 200 people a year. Return membership, that's, you told me that 10 years ago, I wouldn't have believed you. I wouldn't have believed you. And in fact, if you had told me 10 years ago I could sign up for a club, I would have paid you $200 to be one of those members. That's how much we needed it. Now we have it. And, as you saw on social media, it's growing. It continues to grow. And I think the real testament, the strength of the club now is that, a pandemic hasn't slowed us down at all. We've remained consistent and strong, and the return membership and all that, despite lockdown and all of these hurdles, has just remained incredible. So very proud and really honored to, have been a part of this amazing thing that we've created.
That's an incredible story, Ryan, and thank you so much for sharing. And it's just a testament to the fandom of this sport in this city and in this country. And Bayern being one of the reasons why I approached you to come on the show. Bayern Munich and Juventus have a great relationship with each other on and off the pitch. Karl-Heinz Rummenigge and Andrea Agnelli are, friends. They have a great relationship. Over the years, we've had a lot of player transfers between, you go back to Arturo Vidal and Kingsley Coman and Douglas Costa, back and forth, now being on loan for this season after the purchase from a few years ago. So it was a great fit, and it makes a lot of sense. And in a lot of ways, our clubs and our teams are very similar in that sense. So it's great to see that you guys are coming up with great ideas during the pandemic, very similar to what we've been able to grow as a club during these times. And a lot of people have, even other fellow Juventus clubs, they just kind of shut down and hunkered down for the last year. We haven't, and a lot of other clubs have, but it's great to see that. And even for, as general Canadian fans, with Alphonso Davies, one of the best players in the world, under 23, and one of, if not the best left back in the world. It's really exciting to see how his career is going to go, both domestically and internationally for Canada, for a country that's been starving for some football success. So that's amazing to hear. Let's dive right into our show. Thank you, Ryan. I'll get your opinion on the Serie A in just a bit, but I'll turn it over to James and John for Serie A. Gentlemen, it's been a rough month for Juve. We're not even going to get into the Champions League because that's I think we've beaten that horse enough. The month started off with a promising win against Lazio. We beat Cagliari right after the Porto elimination, but a very disappointing loss against Benevento a few days ago. We got the international break, so now we can kind of reflect. John, I'm going to start with you on your assessment of this last month, and where do we go from here going forward? Because it's still a lot of season to be played, but it's definitely one of the toughest stretches over the last 10 years for our beloved Vecchia Signora.
I actually don't even know where to start. I think that anybody who actually think there's any rhyme or reason to what's transpired, I mean, you have, we can talk about midfield weaknesses across the board, but these are senior players with experiences with their senior teams, national teams. I mean, you got guys like Ramsey, Rabiot, Bentancur, although obviously with COVID being out as well, McKennie, Arthur, Kulusevski. These are all gentlemen players that, I mean, if you can't learn from one of the top players in the world in terms of how to bring it every game and having, regardless of whether or not they're on the field, guys like Chiellini or Bonucci or Buffon, that type of presence and leadership on or off the pitch, on the bench, should give you a sense of what it means to wear the jersey and to play. Look, there is a lot of soccer that's been played. There's been, I know these guys are human beings and they're looking for fan base and they're probably looking for that edge of getting up for the game. But I mean, a game like Benevento, it just really does talk to. I guess there's a confusion. There's an identity that is missing that has typically never been an issue with Juventus teams. It really does. It's surprising. I mean, you have guys like, on defense that if when the season started, you talked about guys like Demiral, De Ligt, in terms of their ability to play the central with the support of guys like Bonucci and Chiellini, even though Chiellini injured and not expecting. I don't think anybody would have summed up the season at the commencement the way it's gone right now. I think that everyone knew that it'll be a tighter race, but to see Inter 10 points ahead of us, I think that any soccer fan would have said, look, would it be a tight race? Was Inter obviously favored based on things? Look, it's a season that I've seen no other than it's good for the fan base. It's across Serie A. It's not good for Juve fans in terms of our heart palpitations and our ability to digest what is happening. I think that this break hopefully will give us a little bit of resolve and just have us kind of go back and look at what's been done. I honestly, at this point in time, we have a team like Juventus. Leadership needs to be there. I don't think they have it on the pitch. I've said it to you guys before. You take out guys like Chiellini, Bonucci, Buffon, who's obviously a backup to Chesney. Outside of Ronaldo, which is, he's playing the top third of the field, there's no one really marshaling or taking that position for the team. Outside of that, I loved Pirlo as a coach. I just don't know if he can articulate to all of these players what's inside of the maestro's head. Like, the guy is one of the most intelligent soccer players that ever touched the ball. Can he then translate that onto a pitch to players who may, it may be one of those guys who has it all in his head and is unable to express his vision to his players. And I think that you have to be a certain type of coach. Was he catapulted into the position fairly quickly? Absolutely. No one expected this when this has happened. You were looking for a more senior coach, a coach that is obviously seasoned with complex games in Champions League and finals, someone who can pull the trigger and make the right decision at the right time. You can have a player at the side of it, I'm ready, coach. But if the coach isn't called for the substitution, that I'm ready, coach is out the door. Again, it's confusing for me. I have not seen anything in the last 2 to 3 weeks that would tell me that outside of a few players who really give it all. Chiesa is one of them. I mean, Ronaldo always shows up. To blame him for our Champions League loss is insane. I mean, he's Mr. Champions League. So, I mean, you can't just ask this guy to go pull a horse and carriage and have him go 300 kilometers an hour. It's not possible. And that's where we're at right now. That's my opinion.
Thanks, John. James, I'll get your thoughts. There's been a lot of talk about Ronaldo leaving, Pirlo being sacked. Pavel Nedved in an interview today on DAZN saying Ronaldo's staying for sure, Pirlo's staying for sure next season. But then after that, everything is kind of up in the air. Are you buying this, James? And what are your thoughts on that situation?
So as of this moment, yes, I'm buying that Piero will be back, and as well as Ronaldo. Not just based off the performance. There's a lot of financial aspects behind the scenes as well of why they would be back. Juve is already paying sorry. And then as the contract, if they let Piero go, they would still have to pay him another year plus bring in another coach. And that would be a lot of funds tied up on the manager. So I don't see that happening. With that being said, though, if we see a tank the rest of the way, they would have to make the move and bite the bullet there. So as of today, yes, I think Piero will be back. In regards to Ronaldo, it's Ronaldo's decision. I think he is a player who has basically earned the right through his career that he can decide where he wants to go. I think he's very happy in Italy. Is he happy that we got eliminated out of Champions League the last couple of years? I don't think so. But he's also a very smart and intelligent person as well. And he knows for someone to pay his salary, there's only a limited amount of teams that are out there and in the COVID environment who can possibly be a destination. And then also for him, where does he want to go? I know as soon as Juve have a bad game, you'll see the tabloids in Spain saying he's coming back to Real Madrid, tabloids in England, he's coming back to United. And don't forget those tabloids in Paris because they want him PSG beside Neymar. Right, it sells newspapers, it gets clicks. I don't think he is going anywhere. I think we will have him for the last year of the contract. With that being said, transfer market wise, that will make other players expendable. But as of Nedved's interview today, I believe Ronaldo and Piero will be here next year. Now, in terms of how we played in the month of March, to echo John's piece, we beat ourselves, and Piero has brought in this. I think as John mentioned, he's very intelligent. He knows what he's doing. But what seems to be lacking with the team is a passion. It's that grinta that's just been missing. And again, echoing John, is it because we don't have the leaders on the field? There's no Buffon in the back line barking out, no Chiellini. And Ronaldo is too far up the field to really be that voice. So do we need a leader in the midfield? I mean, the loss against Benevento, you can say that there should have been a clear penalty. I thought that was a penalty, but we should have not needed that penalty to get a point out of that game. It was a home game, and we essentially gave it away with a pass that you wouldn't see 10-year-olds do in house league soccer. So we beat ourselves. Now, as hopefully we have this break and the players come back refreshed. I was really looking forward to this last game because we've had that game in hand, and now Inter's going to have a game in hand. So this would have actually closed the gap. So when you're looking at the standings, it didn't look as bad with that 10 points because it would have just been 7 points. But now it really is 10 points. I believe it's April 7th where we're playing Napoli, and Inter will be having their recap game as well. So that can swing, hopefully, swings in a good way. But again, the players got to come back. They got to come back focused. They got to know it's not over. It's fino alla fino for a reason. The season, there's lots of games to play. Anything can happen. We control our own destiny. They got to forget about what Inter's doing and just get the wins. And that's I think what's the frustrating thing for Juventinians. What's frustrating for me. We should have picked up an easy 3 points that game.
Well said. And Ryan, I want to get your thoughts as a neutral, like your thoughts on Juve and just the Serie A title race in general. Do you think, what are your thoughts, and who do you think is ultimately going to win in the end?
Yeah, just to touch on what James said, I think the only tabloid you don't have to worry about is Bild in Munich picking up any stories about Ronaldo going anywhere, because that board does not like spending that kind of money. But given the way things are going, who knows at this point. And also, I just want to quickly say, and not at the expense of your misery, but it is actually enjoyable to listen to supporters of another club commiserate over what their club is going through, because you become so tied into what your club is doing all the time, and all your conversations are only about your club. It's always interesting to hear about the dynamic of, okay, sure, I see you guys lost on Sunday, and obviously against a club that you shouldn't have lost, but it's more interesting to hear the breakdown of what's going on in the club. So that's really cool. I think for me, it's, I pick up what I think everybody else picks up, which is, the outrage or the hyperbole, or, anything that's getting the clicks. Anything with Ronaldo, you're getting clicks. Ronaldo out of the Champions League, you're getting a lot of clicks on that. So we saw all that, and we saw all of the feedback and opinion that came with that. One of those opinions was, Ronaldo going to Juve is a huge mistake. Is Ronaldo going to Juve a huge mistake? Is Ronaldo going anywhere a huge mistake? Like, can you actually say Ronaldo going to a club could ever be a bad thing? I don't believe it, personally. The guy's too talented. And I believe both Joe and James touched on this already. If players aren't willing to step up as a result of his influence, his resume, his leadership as being the hardest working player in the sport, that's on the players and the club, not on Ronaldo, in my opinion. Now, as far as Pirlo goes, I don't think any player scared me as much as Pirlo did. I don't have to touch on the many meetings our respective national teams have had, and what Pirlo did in a few of those. Recently,
let's not go there, Ryan.
Most recently 2012, but that guy is, well, not most recently 2012, but what he did in 2012 was ridiculous. But that guy, you said he's a master. Like his mind is just a football, breeding ground of ideas and whatever. And again, I don't understand how you could pinpoint someone like him not doing well. I do understand that sometimes the message is not received quite as well. Like Joe said, we've seen it with many managers with a great football pedigree as a player, not translating to a manager. But, I think it's way too early for anybody to think that you got to write this off and throw it away. Clearly, I did, see that loss on Sunday, and my eyes definitely did a big, bulging out. I was going to send Joe a message and chirp a little bit, but he knew I had some dental work coming and I didn't need any bad karma. So I kept that to myself, but, without a doubt, shocking. And it's right before an international break. I think that's, it can be a really bad thing because they could be brooding over that now for this time. But alternatively, it could be the kick in the ass that they need. Go get your break. Those of you with your national teams, go do your thing, come back, pull your pants up, get to work. You guys are, I believe, 10 points back. And you guys would know better than I do if that's even something that you can recover from. Lastly, you touched on the parallels between Bayern and Juve, the similarities. And one of those similarities most recently has been the success within our respective leagues. Which most people at this point are just calling utter domination because it's year over year over year. Juve fans might not agree, but maybe some will. Just like I know deep down inside some Bayern fans agree. We wouldn't mind seeing that parity. We wouldn't mind seeing that next club or clubs step up and challenge. the whole product, the overall product, everything that we sit down to watch and enjoy is that much better when the competition is there. And I think we all agree on that. You know, if your team is 20 points ahead by spring, by March, and unless you're still in your League Cup and the Champions League, what are you even cheering for anymore? What are you supporting, right? So I think that competition, it just adds so much more excitement to the overall product. And again, another parallel, our respective leagues, they get dumped on every day, right? They do not get the respect around Europe that the EPL gets, that La Liga gets, right? And we might have arguments to defend our respective leagues, but we know at the end of the day, it's not there. And one of those reasons is the constant top club overshadowing all the other clubs eliminates any idea of this being a competitive league. And you need the Champions League success too from those other teams, right? They got to do more than just make it into their group and you know, go out down into Europa every year. There's got to be more than that. So as an outsider looking in, you know, I think it's great that you guys have a little bit more parity. I think it's great, you know, that Juve's not at the top with, you know, running away with the league. But, you know, I think for a club like Juve, you know, you got bigger goals every year, and to go out in the Champions League this early with a team built the way it is, especially with a Ronaldo on there, I would say that's unacceptable.
That's a great point. And I'll just wrap up my thoughts here on Pirlo. I think Ronaldo is going to, staying. I think they're actually, my opinion, they're going to extend him at least one more year so he can play through the World Cup in November next year. And then he'll probably go to MLS after that. But in terms of Pirlo, I know, he's a very smart guy. He knows he was a genius on the pitch. I don't think it comes down to him and his style where he wants players to play multiple positions and be kind of universal and not have a set position. I think is really, really thinking far ahead into the future, but I just think it's just too complicated. The problem with Italian football, and one of the reasons why the teams got knocked out in the Champions League and haven't been doing very well over the last decade, it's not the stadiums, which people always like to point out. It's not the players, because they're very good, because when they go to other teams, they excel. It's the fact that we're still like the Italian, football pyramid, and the whole system is so fixated on tactics, like so much more than it used to be. And it's put a lot of unnecessary pressure on players, on management, on the staff to perform at a hypercritical level that it's, very similar to, what you guys have in Germany for Bild. We have 3 Bilds in Italy with Tutto Sport, Gazzetta dello Sport, and Corriere dello Sport. There's just a huge amount of added pressure, and I think they're overthinking it. And it just comes down to let's kind of go back. Let's take our heads out of our butts and not focus on writing a 30-page thesis at our famous coaching school at Coverciano, and just let the kids play. One of the reasons why I enjoy watching the Bundesliga as a neutral, why they've been having so much success, whether it's Leipzig or Dortmund in Europe, is because they play a simple style of running, getting the ball up, vertical passing, and scoring. It's simple. The boys out there, the lads are having fun. There's no tactics, that they're too gravely have to worry about. I mean, there's no point bringing, Italian teams, when they go to Europe, I like to use this analogy, you're bringing chess pieces to a checkers game. And that has to change. And whether it has to be a foreign coaches coming in, revamping the system, I don't know what has to be done, but I really think it's magnified here at Juventus. It's just too complicated for the players. We saw that with Maurizio Sarri last year. We're seeing it again. It just has to be a better way. And I think it's something that it's not an easy answer. There's no easy solution, but something's got to change from a more macro systemic level, I think, overall, not just for Juventus, but all of Calcio and Italian football. But Ryan, you mentioned the Bundesliga, and I just wanted to touch on that really quickly before we move on to the Champions League. Bayern right now is 4 points ahead of Leipzig. Dortmund may not even make the Champions League. But is the league done for Bayern, in your opinion? Is it pretty much over?
I'm going to say yes. And that's not even from a cocky standpoint. It's just from an experience standpoint of, once there becomes a bigger divide, it just continues to go. And if you look at the schedule ahead, if there's any chance of it not going our way, it's going to take Leipzig beating us on April 3rd. They're going to need that full swing of points, right? But outside of that, I just personally don't see it. We've had some lapses of judgment defensively, which, we've given up some early goals, and there have been games where, we've paid for it, but the squad is too strong. Lewandowski is playing at an insanely remarkable level right now. 40 goals on the season in all competitions, and we're not even done March. Just the strength is there now. I will say this: Leipzig's introduction to the Bundesliga was not a very positive one amongst the supporters of the other clubs. Obviously, the main reason being their, newfound ownership and the whole Red Bull thing. For me, what I'm seeing is that, we've got this one-horse race happening every year. Dortmund shows up for a few months. They challenge for a few months. They even beat us often in the first meeting of the season. And everybody goes, this is the year. And then by December and after the winter break, it all starts to go away. Bayern runs away with it. With Leipzig, what's happening is you finally have a club now that's not afraid to spend some money, not afraid to retain their players. And that's been the biggest killer of the parity and success of the Bundesliga. No foreign ownership, right? This is all going on within the country. So the funding is not there that exists throughout Europe with those bigger clubs that we're going to be competing against, right? That the German clubs would be competing against. But even within the league isn't able to constantly produce the talent and the squads required to play at that high level. Entertaining football, absolutely. Can anything happen on any given match day between most of the clubs? Absolutely. Is there going to be a different winner at the end of the season for the foreseeable future? I don't see it. And we need a team to step up and be that, that challenger. And Leipzig right now, I believe, is the one that has the best chance of doing it, because they've got the backing and they're willing to for the most part, put their best foot forward. So I do think this season's done, and I hope this isn't some sort of curse you guys are allowing me to put on my own club by saying this publicly, but I do personally believe it's done.
Yeah, and I think as a neutral, I mean, it's going to be 9 in a row, and it more likely than not, we probably won't be getting the 10th, but maybe parity or at least a different winner kind of spices things up. So could be onto something there. Quickly before we move to Champions League, just a reminder for everyone listening. April, we've got a couple of pretty big matches. There's the Derby della Mole against Torino on April 3rd. That infamous Juventus-Napoli game on the 7th of April, and then Atalanta-Juventus on April 18th. So it's not going to be easy for Juve to climb back. Of course, we've got about, 11 games left, so anything can really happen from now until March 24th. So, again, like James mentioned, fino alla fine, and let's hope for the best and that, Sassuolo can cut us a break there. Gentlemen, let's turn our attention to the Champions League. We've got a couple of 4 tantalizing fixtures in the quarterfinals. Real Madrid, Liverpool, Man City, Dortmund, Bayern, PSG, and Porto versus Chelsea. James, I'm going to start off with you on this one. Who's going to win? Who's going to take that big-eared trophy at the end? I know it's only the quarters, but what are your predictions?
Well, it's not just because of our guest here today, but I had predicted Bayern to win this from the start. The defending champions, and to be the man, you got to beat the man. And I just don't see any other team that has built themselves strong enough to beat them. Lewandowski has just been a machine. You have the best left back. Well, you can say arguably, but we're all Canadian, so we can say it. You have the best left back in the world. and he's only getting better. He's only getting faster. He might have a red card to slow him down, but I think that was more to be able to play for Canada in the next couple of games. Yeah, I have Bayern winning it. I hope I don't jinx you on that one, but they are a team that I enjoy watching. My boss is a big Lazio fan, so when the draw happened and I kind of told him, "You're done," and he's like, "No, we got a chance." And after that first half of the first leg, I went in his office. I'm like, "You're done already?" He goes, "No, it's not." He goes, "What's the score?" I'm like, "This is it." He goes, "Okay, yeah, we're done." So I'm just surprised they kept it close for the second leg, but they're a team. They fire on all cylinders. They're running consistently, and it's something as a Juve fan watching, you want to see us do, because they are doing that press. They are running 100 miles an hour. There's no lily-dagging where we're passing on our back line. So they're the team to beat. Can PSG do something? PSG always just, to me, seems to fall apart somewhere. And then the English teams are the English teams. So that's who I got winning it.
John, what are your predictions there for the winner of the UCL?
Well, I think we're seeing the final in the quarterfinal, to be very honest with you. If I had to give consistency, and I haven't really given PSG any type of respect over the last couple of years, just because of how they've gone out in the past. But this is probably the best PSG team you can possibly seen in the last, I would say, 5 to 6 years. And I'm going to say, if there's any team that's going to give Bayern a run for the money, it's PSG. Once that's done, I don't see Man City. I just don't think they have the technical. I know that Pep's got them playing well. I don't think they have it. I really do believe. I'm going to say that if I had to pick the winner, whoever wins that quarterfinal leg between PSG or Bayern is going to win the CL, and that is without a doubt. Definitely not Chelsea or Porto, and I'm a little bit ticked off that we could have been in Porto's place playing against Chelsea, because I think that would have been we're the weakest one, we're out, but that would have been a great pick. But yeah, that's no Real. Real did their thing. Real got there based upon again, they're out this round, but yeah, there's no Liverpool. I love Klopp. I think the Klopp is one of the best coaches in the world, but I don't think that Liverpool, without their center D, Van Dijk, in the back marshalling, I think they're missing a very key component to their success as a team. Firepower is fantastic. In the league, they do a lot of great things between Salah and Shaqiri on the wing and the playing, but and some of the other guys on the team. Again, I just look at the how the team's constructed, and honest to God, I think that Lewandowski, if possible, could score with his eyelashes. I don't see this guy missing. He doesn't miss a beat. He's just as formidable as death and taxes are. If he gets within a sniff of the net, it's in. And I'll be honest with you, people know he's a potent forward. I still don't think he gets the respect that he actually really truthfully deserves. And it's insane. You talk about the breadth of attackers out there. People are going crazy about Haaland. And I get it. He's a young, very charismatic, whereas Lewandowski, blue collar, go to work, get it done, go home, check out. And he's back checking in, doing his job, checking out. Or, you get a little more of that suave, the panache with Haaland. I think, great. These are great young talents coming in the league. But you want to talk about don't leave home without it. You don't leave home without Lewandowski. And I'm going to say it's great to say that we probably, as Canadians, we have probably the best left wing back, left full back in the world. When have we ever said in soccer that we had the best of something? This is the first. It's really exciting to see. I can tell you as a Canadian, and then here's my little guilty, and Ryan probably like this. I actually have a Alphonso Davies Bayern jersey. I obviously don't wear it, and whatever. But I do have it for the sake of of knowing that he's just what a find, what a find, what a player, the dedication he has to the team, and how pivotal he was to that Champions League win in Portugal is phenomenal. Just to have that type of presence on the field and knowing that he was a big part of the win, incredible. You can't have best goalie in the world for my take. I think that he gets overshadowed ever since Neuer went off with injury and coming back. He slowly regained he's got such a great arrogance about himself with respect to the way he carries himself as a player, as a goalie, and he's there to make the key. When there is a slip up, which I rarely see, I mean, you have a back wall like him. I think it gives the defenders and the midfielders a lot of confidence when you have a backstop like Manuel Neuer, and it really does give the players the confidence they have to focus on their game when they know they can get protected by their number one.
I'm going to go a little bit off the board. So starting with Porto, I do think they're going to beat Chelsea. And I say this because in the two legs against Juve, I saw two things, one tangible, one intangible. The intangible being the heart and dedication they had to play almost 70 minutes, a man down, and to survive is just something that you can't teach in players. And even though they're not the most talented team per se, they are so well coached. And I can't say this enough. Like we obsess over tactics in Italy, but Sergio Conceição had his team so well prepared against us. It was crazy. And I think even though Thomas Tuchel has done amazing at Chelsea and has really resurrected their team, I think somehow they're going to find a way to pull it out against them. If there was any other opponent, Porto probably would have lost, but Chelsea, there's a chance. And I think that they'll just squeak it out somehow, some way. That doesn't mean I think they're going to make it and win it all. I think this is going to be PSG's year. Sorry, Ryan. I'll get to your points in a second. But the reason why I think it's going to be this time around, you have Mauricio Pochettino. The team is playing so well. Neymar finally looks happy after 3.5, 4 years at PSG. I think he's finally comfortable and settled in. Kylian Mbappe is on the verge of exploding and becoming, the next CR7, the next Leo Messi. He's just so close. The momentum is building. Marco Verratti is finally showing the potential that everyone in Italy was saying 10 years ago that he would carry the mantle as the best midfielder in the world after Pirlo. He's having career of his life. If he stays healthy, and same with Neymar, and they don't get any disciplinary cards or anything like that, I think they're going to just squeak by Bayern. And I think it just really pains me to see Moise Kean, who on our team 2 years ago, blossoming at PSG. Alessandro Florenzi, who was on loan from Roma, they cast him aside for some reason, even though born in Rome, was the captain at Rome. For whatever reason, never had an fight with the coach. He's blossoming. It's good for our national team, but for the rest of Europe, it's kind of, and maybe it's a sign to show the other Italians where our league has gotten more foreign players. Like, look, we have talent in Italy. Look, they're playing on one of the best teams in the world. Why are we not playing more Italians on the pitch? So I think everything is coming together for PSG, and that's why I think they'll barely squeak by Bayern. And even the final last year was very close. So they've got as good a shot as any. Man City would be probably my next. If it's not the winner of Bayern and PSG, it would probably be Man City, just because they are, they're on such a tear. And I think finally Pep's got them where they want him. And I think the rest of the field is not particularly strong. They'll have to get by the winner of Bayern and PSG. Whoever comes out of that will win. But it's almost, I'd say it's like a 53-47 for me for PSG. But Ryan, I can only guess what you're going to say. But your thoughts on who's going to win, and can anyone really challenge for Bayern outside of PSG, assuming they get by the Parisians in the quarters?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a lock by any means. I obviously have, nothing but 100% support and belief. And I'm not just saying that, with absolute bias, but it's just, it's just from, if you're putting out the squad that has consistently prevailed, minus a few changes, and these changes were important, and can't be overlooked. But regardless, still a very solid squad. You got the same manager, you got the same system, the same tactics. To Joe's point, where would we be without Neuer, right? Everyone's going to remember Coleman's header to win, but if you actually watch that match, that's not how we won the match. That game could have gone either way, that final, right? PSG was in that match as much as we were, right up until the end, and it was Neuer that really pulled out all the stops. A big thank you to Juve for Coleman, obviously, and the success we've had with him. But no, I do think Bayern is definitely the, let's say, highest, has the highest percentage to win, and I feel like that's justified. But what scares me more than actual football is storyline. And right now you've got a storyline brewing of Neymar's return, Neymar's revenge. You've got the poster boy, basically the UEFA poster boy, going toe to toe with the team that knocked him out of the finals and prevented him from winning last year. And I do think that plays a part. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and I don't blame refs, and I don't blame UEFA and all this corruption stuff. But I do honestly believe it plays a part. I do think it goes into the minds of the refs and all of this when you're building up these matches and the importance of it. And as scary as storyline is, equally, if not scarier, is Mbappe. And besides Ronaldo, I don't think there's an individual player that terrifies me as much. What he can do, a burst in a moment, your whole defense just shatters. You watch guys literally, have to change direction and realizing they have to change direction at the point he's already gone by. And with him and Neymar and their ability to dribble into the box and put you at risk of a leg out, and it's terrifying. It's terrifying. So I'm hoping that the overall strength of our squad will once again prevail. But I think you key points on the head there, regarding the PSG being a much stronger squad this year, and I think it will be a different squad without a doubt. And I think over two legs it will be that much more challenging. But outside of that, I think I have to agree on City being the next biggest threat. I always seem to think they're going to do a lot better than they do. I do have a bit of a man crush on Pep and his time with Bayern and the beautiful football that we played under his tutelage, and the players absolutely singing his praises in their development under him. But, we've seen year over year, domination of the Champions League. So I can see them winning. I also wouldn't be surprised at all if a team like Dortmund is able to grind out a result and come out of that two-leg tie. So, but I do think City would be the next challenger for the final.
And staying on the Champions League topic, we'll be pretty brief on this one, just because we have to get to the internationals quickly. But there's a new Champions League format that's pretty much signed and sealed for post 2024. And this time, for those that don't know, it's going to be expanded to 36 teams. There will be 10 games played between September and January, not the typical 6. And it's going to go, the top 8, it's going to be almost like a division. Top 8 will go straight to the round of 16. And the 9th and 24th place will play a playoff to decide the other 8 teams for the round of 16. This was a response to threats by some of the big teams, including Juventus and Bayern, to break off and form their own Super League, which has been a rumor that we've been hearing for the last 25 years. With this, they're kind of thinking, okay, now we're giving them what they want, to not break away. It's been controversy from some of the leagues, mainly the Premier League, with, some competitions might be canceled and there might be less domestic games because of more added European fixtures. And the players and the fans want to see more European games. But John, I'll start with you. Do you like this proposed new format? Any thoughts? Any quick thoughts on that?
Look, honestly, I think they're heading more into. I hate to say it, but I think they're looking for more the American appeal or the North American appeal. I think it lends to this almost like this March Madness like mentality of like playing these scrum games of 10 and then figure out who your top 8 is, and then 8 to 24 gets or whatever, the rest gets seeded, and find out who your 16 teams are at the end. I mean, it I just want to know what the different federations are thinking. I mean, you're talking about, I know the money is there when you're making it past the first round, or whatever you want to call the first round now, because it's 10 games. And I know everybody's looking for money. I think it'll be something where they're pulling in more sponsors for this, which would mean more money regardless. I don't know, man. You're going to have to start creating. I hope that AI stuff starts popping up sooner than later, because you're going to need some robots on the field. These guys are already playing crazy amounts of soccer already. I mean, Ryan, what do you have? Bundesliga, what, 34 weeks in the Bundesliga? Is that what it is? So, I mean, 38. I mean, you're doing, that's, guys, it's 52 weeks in a year. You throw in another, 10 games plus, quarterfinals and hitting up. You're playing 14 games plus domestic cup plus league. I mean, we're going to start carrying football, American football type rosters where you have 48 guys ready to go, because I can't see, I can't, unless you are a team with a deep bench. And what I mean by deep bench is not 3 or 4 extra players. If you do not have 23 players where you can just switch it up, and I hope in order to support this, that they actually keep the 5-man rotation of substitutions, because that's going to be required. I like the process. I think it's different. I think we need a change. I think we need a little bit of interest. Like any other sport, whether, Formula One goes through it regularly. I don't know if you guys are fans. I'm a big fan. So, it's consistently evolving the sport, going from, V12s, V10s, V8s to electric motors to, being a run on biofuel, and to them not making noises anymore, the cars. But it's something where we need a little bit of interest. I'm going to say it, outside of the European Cup, the Champions League is the second hardest trophy to win, I believe, in all of football. The World Cup, not as much, as people may argue with me, but in Europe, the level of play and competition is second to none. Although we have other parts of the world that are really growing, as the U.S. is, and always has been. I think it's fantastic for the sport. I don't think it's fantastic for the players. I think the level of fitness has to be at an all-time high. And my concern is how this is going to affect domestic league play.
Yeah, it's a huge concern. James, your thoughts on this new format?
What I think this is the bigger clubs, they all wanted an extra revenue stream, and this is going to give them more home dates, more stadium revenue. Hopefully we can open up the stadiums to fans again, and more TV revenue too. So the big guys keep getting richer, and the smaller clubs will be the ones that will have to suffer. So like John mentioned, if you're a smaller club that just barely got into that bubble, you really don't stand a chance to compete on all 3 fronts. So you'll have to pick and choose where you're going to be competing against. So it should create some interesting dynamics going forward. I do think the 5 substitution rule is going to be here to stay. There's a lot more pros versus cons on that, because it also allows you to put a bigger roster and to give these players who normally would be on an under 23-man squad potential playing time. So hopefully maybe this format too will make these under 23 squads kind of merge a little bit more with their parent clubs. And
Ryan, your thoughts as a Bayern fan? Do you like it? Any quarrels with this, the 36 team Champions League?
Yeah, I mean, the number of teams doesn't really concern me. I get the idea, and I do agree about the whole, let's call it Americanization of it by doing it that way. But I'm not so concerned about the number of teams, more concerned about, as it's been touched on, the added games as a result. There's a big part of me that, screams out, yes, like more football, more, excuses to go to the bar, more beers, more connecting with our club. Although my wife would strongly disagree with all of that. So she's definitely not supportive of this. But specifically as a Bayern fan, my club has just played the most possible football you can in a calendar year. And if you want to retroactively bring the Club World Cup back to 2020 where it belongs, you've added even more. And then it was like the season was done and we were playing again, right? Like, when did the season even end? When did it begin? It was just this continuation. And the performance on the pitch, especially at the beginning of the season, was awful. It was awful, man. There was tired legs. There was, injuries. There was guys that looked like, even just simply, making a pass was a huge challenge. So it's like, what is this being done at the expense of? Are we adding all of this opportunity for more football, but then having less quality of actual football? Is it quantity over quality? I do agree that's the case. If, especially, they don't do what the other gentlemen have said already, adding more players to the roster, certainly keeping the minimum 5 substitutions. And God knows I can count more than a handful of matches historically. I wish we had those 5 subs. But, certainly going forward, you're going to need that. So my biggest concern is exactly what I think everyone has touched on already. What is the quality of this football going to be as a result of adding that much more football to the schedule?
Yeah, and you guys hit a lot of great points. Myself personally, I think, part of me, being a big fan of the history of the sport, part of me is sad that teams like, Red Star Belgrade and Steaua Bucharest and even Ajax may never win the Champions League again. But at the same time, this is the way the sport is moving. And I think now with more games, you're going to have to see more of an emphasis on how some of the, if you look at the NHL, the NFL, basketball at the NBA, they're playing a hell of a lot more games. They've got to utilize, different strengths. So nutrition is going to be a big part. Fatigue, sports science is already at the forefront. We've never been more in tune with that kind of stuff, but it's only going to have to get better to keep players fit and going. Extended rosters, more subs that might be permanent, like you hit on the head there, James. I like it though, because who doesn't want to see more games in Europe? Even if that means having to cut, Serie A from 20 to 18 teams, which honestly they've been floating that idea around for the last couple of years anyways, with or without this. The Bundesliga, I think you guys are in good shape because playing an extra few games, I think it's manageable because you guys only have one domestic cup, just like pretty much everybody except England. I know France scrapped their second domestic cup last year, I believe. And England still, they still have their League Cup, which honestly, the Premier League teams don't even care about. And it's just a waste, to be honest. I always thought it was ridiculous that they have to play through Boxing Day and they don't get holidays, but they still have to play another tournament in England. It's a different system there, they're with the Premier League splitting off when it did 30 years ago. But I think it's going to be fine going forward. Look, the sport is getting bigger. It already was and has been the greatest and most followed sport in the world. But I think with the World Cup coming to North America, I think there's going to be a huge appetite for more European football. The best players, the World Cup is amazing. The Euro Cup is amazing. And the World Cup will always, it's special because it unites people. But the best football in the world is played in the UEFA Champions League. And more people want to see that. More of the new fans want to see that. And I think it's just going to be how it evolves. And the leagues are going to have to adapt, whether that means more subs, less games domestically. I don't know, but that's a decision they have to make. But I'm a fan for it, and I look forward to that going forward in the next after 3 years from now. And just to wrap up on our last topic, guys, just the internationals. We are here recording this during the international break. Some of the Italian the 2022 World Cup qualifiers are finally starting after that COVID spell. We have a triple header for all the teams in Europe. So Italy's got Northern Ireland, Bulgaria, and Lithuania over the next week and a half. Germany has Iceland, Romania, North Macedonia. Suffice to say, I think we can all agree Italy and Germany, are pretty much locks to make it in their groups. They might have some troubles. I mean, at least in Italy's group, I don't foresee the way Mancini has had us play. I don't really see it being a repeat of 5 years ago. Mercifully, thankfully. Germany, with Iceland on the decline, maybe Romania, North Macedonia, but there's just no way. I don't see them finishing first, not finishing first in that group. I want to get on Euro 2020. I know we discussed this with a couple of our guests over the last month or so. But Ryan, I want to get your thoughts on Germany's chances. We'll speak to Italy in a second, but briefly, you guys are in the group of death: Hungary, France, Portugal. I think they're still going to get out. There's 3 teams make it out of the group now, or at least have the potential to. But what are your thoughts on Germany's chances? And Joachim Löw is going to step down, which may or may not be a good thing for the national team. But what are your thoughts on a Euro 2020 preview for Germany, who over the last few years have been a little bit inconsistent, not as reliable as they used to be?
You know what, guys? I got nothing for you in terms of a prediction because I have no idea. And I'm saying that from the standpoint of, understanding of the current state of the national team and where we've come from, where we currently are, where we're going, is a real question mark. Looking back, you guys are definitely familiar with transition after a large successful win. And your national team has gone through it as well. So it's an interesting thing because when we came out of the World Cup and we went into the Euro Cup, the World Cup that we won in 2014, we went into the Euro Cup, there was still a lot of crossover between the squad. There was still that, primary old guard that had really pushed the club through in 2014. And there was those younger players that had been on 2014 and also, kind of a new breed that was coming into the squad. Euro 2016 looked good. It really looked good. And, it didn't go our way. And, we lost to a really good team that would eventually win a World Cup a few years later. So, nothing really to be disappointed in. But what happened 2 years later in the World Cup is just embarrassing. And the biggest problem for me is that since that World Cup loss and experience, nothing has really gotten better. If you've looked at the friendlies, if you've looked at the qualifiers, they've done enough to pull themselves through and put themselves in a position to compete once again in a major tournament. But there has been more disappointment than not. And it's been loss after loss or draw after holding the lead. There's no real identity. This current squad just really lacks an identity and definitive leadership. And I get with transition that national teams have to make a choice at some point. When are we going to transition to the new era? But I feel like that World Cup exit made them make some decisions that were a little abrupt, and the removal of Boateng, Muller, and Hummels, as in saying, hey, we got to start from scratch. It was way, way too premature. And you've taken out the leadership. You've taken out that charge that squads need to win major tournaments, to push through, to fight. So with that said, and sorry for going off a bit there, but focusing on this Euro and this group of death, I have no idea what to expect. I think that by the summer, we could definitely see a new squad in terms of the performance. I think these World Cup qualifiers are what I'm going to be watching, not for the World Cup. The World Cup's a lock. We're going to the World Cup. What I'm watching these World Cup qualifiers for is, what team am I going to be watching come June when the Euro kicks off and we're going up against two of the absolute heavyweights and two recent Cup winners themselves, with Portugal in the Euro and France in the World Cup. It's an uphill battle, and you're going into it with a lot more questions than answers. So I think these upcoming World Cup qualifiers and the performance will be the answer that we're looking for.
Yeah, and I think the fact that our opponents, Turkey, beat who were playing in the first game on June 11th, beat the Netherlands 4-2 today. I was not expecting that at all. So I think, I was thinking, Italy's got it pretty easy, but maybe not so much so. John, really quickly, and then I'll get to James. Your thoughts on these three games here with Italy, Northern Ireland, Bulgaria, Lithuania. I know there's a couple of COVID cases that came from some of the Inter Milan players, but I mean, it's a formality, right?
How
I mean,
opportune! How opportune!
It's got to be three. It's got to be 3 wins out of 3, don't you think?
I'm going to tell you, I'll never forget where I was when we went out for the previous one, competition under Ventura, and I can tell you what Mancini has done has just been an absolute masterclass of rediscovering the team. I think you got to go in there with a sense of, I think, confidence. I'm quite disappointed with, and I'd be very skeptical. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but it's so opportune that the players for Inter they're suspected that they don't have COVID, but they're staying back because they just want to be okay. So that's a knock to all you Inter fans, and I hope you take it. But I think we have a very strong midfield. I think where I'm a little bit concerned, because we were weighing heavily on guys like Bonucci and Chiellini to do one last hurrah in the D. I don't think you're going to see a Chiellini active in the D. I'm hoping for a return of Zaniolo, Nico Zaniolo, for Rome. And the previous podcast, obviously looked like I wanted to marry him. The guy is our next big thing for Italian soccer. I truly do believe it. And I think that's just going to lead edge. I'm excited to see what this team has to bring the next few games. I think they're the qualifiers that will, again, I'm going to have to agree with Ryan. I'm not watching this for the sense of knowing where our team's going to be in the World Cup. Like, there's a sense of just curiosity and cautious excitement about where this team could go. So I think they're going to do well. I think they'll pull off the wins. I think, you'll probably have one game potential tied just because of taking the breaks off, or I can see a lot of substitutions. I can see I don't think Mancini's much of a guy for a lot of testing the waters. I think he's very calculated with regards to his approach. I think I'm going to say it, he's been our best coach since Marcello Lippi, who won the World Cup back in 2006 in Berlin against the French. I think that he also had one of the best teams that ever touched the ball for Italy. So at that time, but to have a coach of his caliber, and just a little upsetting that he will not renew his contract with Italy after this Euro Cup, and he won't be there. Apparently, there's going to be a new coach going into the World Cup, which is a little frightening, to be honest with you, under a year away, a new system, new coach going into a World Cup. I think that's going to be a bit disappointing. I'm actually a little more than a year, because we won't be on patios for the 2022 World Cup. We will be in parkas inside with heaters, and because it'll happen in the winter months. So no patio World Cup for us here in Toronto. Hopefully we'll get a bit of a Chinook and enjoy a little bit of a heat wave, but doesn't look like it. Going there, and I'm gonna have to touch upon a little bit about what Ryan said about the Germans. I think that everyone can remember their loss to Bulgaria in 1994 in the in the World Cup in the U.S. And that was if you could say, quarterfinal rock bottom thing. And after that, it was an absolute lock and reload, and reinventing. I don't think the Germans are at that level right now. I don't think they'll ever get back to that level. I think they're just, the mindset will never be, there's no way we're going to get to that level again. And it was a pretty low level to have lost that game with that type of team that won the World Cup 4 years earlier against the Argentinians in Italy. I think that there was a lot more that was a thing. I was actually fortunate enough to see those guys play in Alliston. I actually saw the entire German team practice. I was 17 years old, and I was awestruck by the thing. It was the Germans and the Bulgarians in Alliston. Seeing Hristo Stoichkov and Klinsmann and co. It was Stoichkov for Bulgaria and Klinsmann. They're just hanging around and talking at that point in time. I don't know if Klinsmann was still with Inter, but Stoichkov was playing with Parma, and so on and so forth. So it was really neat. But I don't think you'll ever see the Germans get to that low level again. I think I have to agree with Ryan. I think there's going to be just a reinventing of something. And when something goes stagnant, and having someone at the helm of a team for such a long period of time, you're losing the opportunity for new insight and new progress to the team. The Germans will always be a machine. They're always very well prepared. I mean, it's just whether or not they pull the trigger and they win the game. You can always say they're a consistent team that comes to play every day, and you have to take them seriously. And everybody remembers a 7-1 slaughter of Brazil in Brazil. I mean, that was just, if you want to talk about a masterclass, everyone said, "Oh, how they let that one? Why would they even let 7 goals?" I'm like, look, man, you wanna be the best. You probably beat one of the most storied nations in soccer on home soil. It is a masterclass. So I'm gonna say both. World Cup, no problem. I'm still like, we'll see what happens in the Euros, but I'm more concerned about what they do in the Euros, in these qualifiers for the Euros.
Good points, John. And actually, Mancini will be leaving the team after the World Cup, so he will see it through. But I think he's definitely itching to get back to the club game. We're over time here, but James, really quickly, is it going to be 3 for 3 for Italy over the next week?
Yeah, I'm going to say 2 for 3. I predict 1 tie in there. It's just number of games. Not sure who will be. There'll be 1 hiccup, but I still think we won't lose. For me, watching these 3 games, it is not just to see Mancini wearing the scarf, because he always looks good in the scarf. It's more to see as a Juve fan, how our Federicos do. Last time when we had the international break, Bernardeschi came back as a different player, rejuvenized and full of confidence. So I'm hoping the same happens during this 3-game break.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that about Bernardeschi, but a couple of Italian players, I remember hearing a quote last year, and this goes back to my point earlier in the podcast, that they enjoy playing for the national team more than they do with their clubs, because they felt like they can finally have fun and there wasn't as much pressure. And it's a problem with Italian football that there's a lot of needless pressure put on these players. And again, like I said earlier, let them play. Just let them have fun, and success will come. And we've seen that in the past, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll see that in the Euros and in the World Cup. But gentlemen, it's been a great show. I know we went over time for our usual time, but it was just a great discussion about the beautiful game. Thanks so much to Ryan for that. Ryan, where can we find you, our listeners, on social media, on the internet? Where can we find Südkurve Toronto?
Yeah, let me just quickly say it's an honor, and again, to be the first non-Juve or Serie A supporter to join you guys. That's really cool. Would talk football with you guys anytime, especially over a beer. Let's make a priority of maybe co-hosting each other at some point. You guys come out to our bar for a match, and we'll come and see you guys for a match. As far as social media goes, yeah, we are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter under our club name, SUED KURVE Toronto for Facebook and Instagram. And then it's just SUEDKURVETO on Twitter. But thank you again, guys. Honestly, a great time. Best of luck to your team in the upcoming World Cup qualifiers. And most importantly, let's hope everybody comes home healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ryan. And good luck to Germany and to Bayern ahead of the way. That's it for our show for episode 12. Thanks so much again to our listeners. You can check us out at jofctoronto.com, at Juve Club Toronto on Instagram, and at Juve Club TO on Twitter. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Fino alla fine, Forza Juve.